Parker? Yeah. Remember Alex? Remember? Hey, remember Ghostbusters? Oh, I remember.
Right then, let's talk about Avengers Doomsday, or as I like to call it, Marvel's Greatest Hits, the movie. Now, look, I get it. Marvel is in a bit of a rough patch. The glory days of Infinity War and Endgame are long behind us. The whole multiverse saga has been about as coherent as a drunk bloke trying to explain Tenet, and superhero fatigue is setting in harder than Force Hammer to the face. So, what's their master plan to revive interest? A massive crossover event that brings back all your favourite characters, regardless of whether they're alive, dead, or in a completely different cinematic universe. This is nostalgia bait at its absolute finest, and by finest, I mean the laziest and most cynical form of storytelling imaginable, because rather than doing the hard work of creating compelling new characters and narratives, Marvel has apparently decided that the best way of moving forward is to cling desperately to the past like an aging rock band refusing to retire. Now, let's be clear. Avengers Infinity War and Endgame weren't just big movies, they were events, the culmination of over a decade of careful storytelling, character development, and build-up that actually made people care. We had 20 plus movies leading to those moments, so when things went down, it mattered. When Tony Stark snapped his fingers, you felt that sacrifice. When Captain America wielded Mjolnir, you cheered. When Thanos turned half the universe into dust, you sat there, jaw open, realizing that Marvel had actually gone through with it. It was also perfectly executed because it was earned. And now Marvel wants to recapture the magic, but instead of doing the groundwork, they're just slapping together a greatest hits album and hoping you'll turn up for the encore. First off, let's talk about the biggest, most head-scratching decision in this entire film. Robert Downey Jr. is back, but not as Iron Man. Oh no, that would make too much sense. Instead, he's playing Doctor Doom. Marvel has decided that the best way to utilize their most iconic actor is to put him in a completely different role, one that has nothing to do with Tony Stark. And in doing so, they've completely ignored the fact that Doom is meant to be a Romanian character, which, might be an important detail when casting someone for the role, but hey, who needs accuracy when you can just print money? And it doesn't stop there. Chris Hemsworth is back as Thor, because why let character arcs have actual endings when you can just keep them going indefinitely? Tom Hiddleston's Loki is also there because at this point, Marvel has basically decided that death in the MCU is just a minor inconvenience. Professor X and Magneto are also joining the party, played once again by Patrick Stewart and Ian McKellen. Now, don't get me wrong, I love Stewart and McKellen, they are absolute legends, but they had fantastic send-offs in Logan and Days of Future Past, and dragging them back into the MCU now feels like Marvel desperately digging through the attic to find anything that reminds people of the good old days. And let's not forget all the other returning characters. We've got members of the Fantastic Four, the X-Men, the Avengers, and probably our next door neighbour if they can squeeze them in. This isn't an ensemble cast, it's a logistical nightmare. The biggest issue with Avengers Doomsday is that they're trying to juggle far too many characters at once. Infinity War and Endgame were able to handle massive casts because they had years of setup. By the time those movies rolled around, we already knew these characters inside and out, but Doomsday is attempting to introduce and reintroduce dozens of major players all at the same time, and the result is almost guaranteed to be a mess. There's no way every character will get meaningful development, most of them will just turn up, say something vaguely quippy, and then vanish until the big CGI battle at the end. And speaking of big CGI battles, does anyone else feel like we've seen this all before? We've already had the massive crossover event with Infinity War and Endgame, and yet here we go again, being asked to get hyped up for another one. Except this time, it doesn't feel like the conclusion to an epic saga. It feels like Marvel trying to repackage old ideas and sell them as new. One of the reasons Endgame works so well is because it actually had stakes. When Tony Stark died, it meant something. When Steve Rogers passed the shield to Sam Wilson, however you may feel about this, it was a proper send-off. These moments landed because they felt final. But with Doomsday, Marvel is essentially undoing all of that, bringing back actors who had already had their perfect exits, doesn't just undermine these previous movies, it makes clear that nothing in the MCU actually matters. Remember when Loki died in Infinity War? What a powerful moment. Except now he's back again, because Marvel can't let it go. And it's just not Loki. If you think Doomsday won't have some ridiculous time travel or multiversal excuse to bring back Tony Stark in some form, you're deluding yourself. The moment you start resurrecting characters just because fans miss them, you rob their original deaths of any weight. If nobody really dies in the MCU, where are all the stakes? Now, let's talk about the way this film was announced. announced a 5-hour live stream, 5 whole hours. The entire gimmick was the director's chairs with actors' names would slowly be revealed over 5 hours. As if that's supposed to be exciting. Who actually sat through that? I'll tell you who. People who have too much time on their hands, and Marvel execs who still think the brand has the same pull it did 5 years ago. Most normal people just wait for the highlights to drop on Twitter, X, whatever. The return of directors Joe and Anthony Russo, as well as composer Alan Silvestri, indicates an attempt to rekindle the enchantment of the Infinity Saga. While their earlier work is commendable, sticking with the same creative team may signal a reluctance to try fresh views and storytelling strategies. The MCU flourished by taking risks and introducing new voices. Relying on an old formula could impede creativity and lead to stagnation. Look, I get why Marvel is doing this. They're in trouble after a string of underwhelming films and TV shows, Quantumania, The Marvels, Secret Invasion, take your pick. They need something big to bring people back, but nostalgia bait isn't the answer. Marvel used to be great because it was forward thinking, it took risks, it gave us characters we cared about, and built them up over time. Now it feels they're desperately clinging to the past instead of creating something new. And if Avengers Doomsday is just another exercise in rehashing the same old characters, then honestly, what's the point? Avengers Doomsday is a watershed moment for the MCU. While nostalgia is undeniably appealing, relying too heavily on past triumphs risks alienating audiences eager for new storylines and character development. The MCU's strength has always been its ability to evolve and surprise. Returning to old turf may give short-term rewards, but might ultimately jeopardize the franchise's long-term viability. As Marvel moves forward, it must strike a balance between honoring its rich legacy, the need to innovate, ensuring that future chapters resonate not simply as echoes of the past, but as a brave foray into creative horizons. Marvel, it